we are joined now by Olin Kreutz. He is the best at talking about the offensive line and has a ton of experience, obviously, as a former Bear himself and a center on the Chicago Bears. And I was looking at your Twitter, judging by all the gifs you tweeted out, you are very excited for what the Bears are doing this offseason. We were just joking, you get excited every offseason. But what makes it feel different this year?
Starting at the football and working their way out, right? So I always say the farther you get away from the football, the farther you get away from football, right? And that's where you have to start to build your team is on the offensive and defensive lines. And we know that where the Chicago Bears have struggled. They've struggled in the last couple of years at the center position, staying healthy at the guard positions. And then the Andrew Billings getting hurt last year really affected their football team. So the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl the way they want it has set a trend in the NFL where, look, you have to win football games at the line of scrimmage with your offensive and defensive lines, and it's good that Chicago Bears are trying to correct those positions.
It's been so long since we've had what hopes to be a franchise quarterback paired with the center who they can grow together. What will having a veteran like Drew Dalman mean for Caleb Williams?
It means a lot. It means a lot to get a guy out there who can line everybody up, who can make the calls, who can arrange protections, who could point out the scheme on rundowns also, who the offensive line is working to. Just a guy to help Caleb Williams make the calls, organize the protections. I always say it's kind of like an air traffic controller at the airport. You're controlling a lot of things up there at the front, at the line of scrimmage. You're getting everybody lined up, everybody moving in the right direction. And he has experience, right, working with young quarterbacks. So he knows what it's like to go into games with rookie quarterbacks, having to help them with calls, having to recognize fronts, recognize blitzes, change protections, change the run scheme, and get guys all moving in the right direction. I think having a veteran center there paired with Caleb Williams is really going to help him take a little bit off his plate and allow him just to play a little quarterback. Now, I'm sure he'll grow into what these veteran quarterbacks do where they take over the protection in the run game. But it's always good to have a veteran center up there, a guy who's done it before with young quarterbacks, a guy who can get everybody moving in the right direction.
A follow-up question on that, because we had heard last year as a rookie, Caleb Williams was tasked with the responsibility of knowing so much about the protections and a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage for being a young quarterback. Did that surprise you at all? And should this alleviate some of that for him?
No, that doesn't surprise me. The young quarterbacks, they struggle with those kind of things. And that is the NFL. That is the big difference between high school football, college football, and NFL football, where there is a longer play call. You have responsibilities of recognizing protections, recognizing blitzes, getting to your hot route. By that, I mean sometimes a wide receiver will break off his route if there's too many guys coming that the O-line cannot pick up. And as you guys understand, a lot of times people are screaming at the offensive line, and really it's the quarterback's responsibility. Too many guys came from one side of the field and they overloaded your protection, and they had an extra guy, and the quarterback had to recognize that. So you give it to them early. I'm sure Coleman Shelton was also trying to help them with that last year. Chicago Bears just really struggled, as we all know, last year with details, coaching, getting things arranged, getting guys blocked, giving the quarterback time, and they struggled on the other side with Caleb Williams recognizing blitzes, getting the ball out, holding the ball too long, just getting it to the open wide receiver. So hopefully with Ben Johnson, what we hear about him, right, is that he's real detail-oriented. He has a way of simplifying his scheme so everyone can understand it. He has a way of pointing out what he wants done, and you know that by watching the Detroit Lions, because whenever a team can execute trick plays over and over again, it takes a lot of explaining by the coaching staff to point out, okay, look, this is how they're going to line up. These are the details we're going to do. This is why this play, this trick play is going to work versus this defense. So hopefully here in Chicago, here in Illinois, we get to see a little more of that.
Olin, you worked with multiple quarterbacks during your time in Chicago. So every time you knew you were going to be paired with a different quarterback, what did you feel like your initial responsibility was to get to know them and start to build that relationship?
Yeah, working with multiple quarterbacks is the understatement of the year for what my career was in Chicago. But I did work with a lot of quarterbacks, and you do try to get to know them. Some guys can handle a little more information. You always hear guys say, can you process information from the pocket? Some guys are really good at it, and some guys struggle with it. So you just get used to the quarterback, get used to their cadence, how they want to make calls, how they want to run the ball, what checks do they want. I used to go and sit in quarterback meetings at 8 in the morning. They would have special teams, and they would have quarterback meetings always started the day. So I'd sit in that meeting just so I know how they looked at the game plan, the way they approached things, what they thought, calls are going to be at the line of scrimmage, who they thought the identifications would be, what's going to happen on certain blitzes, certain runs, certain protections. You really got to get to know your quarterback and how they react to certain situations and what calls they want and what the things they want done at the line of scrimmage so they're comfortable playing a position I think no one can argue is the hardest position in sports.
You mentioned a word, cadence. That was something that Caleb Williams struggled with during training camp, especially of his rookie season. Is there any correlation between having a different center, one maybe with more experience and getting more reps, and a quarterback to help him advance his cadence?
Yeah, remember Coleman Shelton did have a lot of reps coming in, right? He played a lot of football there in Los Angeles. I think a lot of this is really just a lot of these young quarterbacks don't use a lot of cadence anymore. In high school, in 7-on-7, I think everyone sees them. They use that clap, right? The claps they use in college, and they don't really use a cadence and get those things going. They don't work from under center a lot. So it'll be interesting to see when Ben Johnson uses a lot of that stuff with Caleb Williams. Can he get him going? Can the cadence be a little more comfortable? And I really do think that with a year under his belt, he'll be a little more used to what they call NFL-style football, calling a cadence out there, getting everybody lined up, having a rhythmic cadence so you can get all your motions in, right? Get the fronts changed, let the center make his call. There's a lot that goes in to playing on an NFL level that is different than, say, running a college scheme where he ran at USC, where it's just clap and go and get your skill guys out there because we're more talented and we're better than you are. We're just get the ball out of his hand and we're going to outrun you most of the times. In the NFL, that doesn't work where everybody can run, everybody is good. You got to use your cadence, you got to use every advantage that you got. So I'm sure he'll be a little more used to that this year, and Ben Johnson and his coaching staff will really work with Caleb on things like that.
One of the most important things I think that comes with bringing in someone like Joe Thuney is that you bring in a winner. And they really haven't had many winners in the locker room, especially someone to set the tone on the offensive line. What do you think that will mean to this locker room?
Yeah, you heard all year last year, right? We don't understand the details. We don't understand everything that we have to do on a daily basis to win football games. You heard that come out of the locker room over and over again. Whether it was firing Shane Waldron because he didn't hold certain players accountable. Whether it was every week, it was like we just got to get our details down. I swear we heard that too many times last year. So here's the guy Joe Thuney, who knows what winning looks like, who knows what it takes to concentrate every day in your meetings, right? Concentrating walkthroughs. Every time you're doing something in the NFL, winning is not a mystery. It's just really hard to do. It's really hard to focus that much every day to be a good football player, and then for the whole team to do it, to lead guys, for everyone to say, hey, we're in the middle of a walkthrough and someone's not paying attention, you just tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, man, pay attention to this part of the walkthrough. This is important for us to win the football game this week. We always say in the NFL, man, winning's done on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Sundays, go out there and play the game. So Joe Thuney, he knows what that looks like, right? And he's been lucky. So, you know, his career with all the winning he's done has always been with Hall of Fame quarterbacks, right? I think the one time he didn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback, that year they went 7-9. So it takes a whole football team, right? It takes a whole football team to win football games. But he definitely knows what it looks like. He can help you set, what do we hear from Hallis Hall all the time? Culture and standards. Set the culture and standard. So your players have to be the ones doing that day in and day out, and they have to know what winning looks like.
Do you remember a time when you were playing where the Bears really addressed the trenches? Because I think there was excitement in the locker room when they draft a quarterback #1 overall. Then they take another skills position player in drafting Rome Odunze last year. But this feels like it makes the team complete. What do you imagine the psyche of a locker room being now that they've made it and filled those holes that needed to be filled?
Yeah, it's very obvious what kind of football team we want to be, right? We want to be a football team that's led from the trenches. We want to be a football team that's led by our offensive and defensive lines. And in 2001, we went and got Ted Washington from the Buffalo Bills. Really taught us a lot about winning. I think he's the best nose guard ever to play the game, right? And he came in there. I remember we were playing one year in 2001. I think we started the year 1-3. We won a football game. We hadn't done a lot of winning around here at that time in 2001. And we went in the locker room. We were celebrating. Like we thought we won a Super Bowl. And he screamed at us. And he said, guys, act like you expected to win this football game. This is just one football game, and he really taught us a lot about leadership. You just asked about what Joe Thuney can bring. He can bring things like that, right? And then we signed Blake Brockelmeyer, who was the #1 left tackle out there in free agency at that time from the Carolina Panthers. You know, in 2006, we went to the Super Bowl. 4 out of 5 offensive linemen I played with were free agents, right? We signed John Tate from the Kansas City Chiefs. We signed Reuben Brown from the Buffalo Bills. Bills. Garza from the Atlanta Falcons. And then we signed Fred Miller from the Tennessee Titans. So I have seen this thing where they put the trenches and we drafted two guys, Tommy Harris and Tank Johnson, in the draft, right, early in the first and second rounds to really build up the line of scrimmage. So I've seen this a lot. I've seen guys like that take the reins and say, look, this is the kind of football team we're going to be. We're going to attack guys at the line. We have to win at the line of scrimmage to win football games. And that's how you set your culture there at Hallis Hall.
And I imagine when you talk about the type of team you want to be for Ben Johnson and that explosive offense to really flourish here in Chicago, they're going to have to be able to run the ball. With the three new additions in the interior, how does that change how the Bears will be able to improve their run game?
Well, Dalman, really good outside zone run blocker, and he does a nice job. And when you're strong up the middle, you can run the ball at anybody, right? Jonah Jackson was a really, really good. He looked really good for the Lions, right? And obviously, he played between Frank Ragnow and Taylor Decker, two very good offensive linemen. But I really like Jonas Jackson's film in Detroit. I thought he was physical. I thought he was a big offensive guard who came downhill, who moved guys off the line of scrimmage. Joe Thuney still has some, from watching his film, still has some left in the tank. Look, I played football when I was 33 years old, too. Sometimes you look like you're 33 years old when you keep playing throughout your career like that. But those three guys are an improvement for the Chicago Bears. We'll see who the running back ends up being. We'll see what Coach Dan Roshar and Ben Johnson want to do with that running game. It seems to me like there'll be a little bit of an outside zone running team. Remember, Darnell Wright is one hell of a run blocker. Really like his game. Hopefully Braxton comes back healthy. We'll see if they add any more assets there to create competition at the left tackle position. But just the inside three, really solidifying that gives you an advantage in the run game to attack people, make them add a safety to the box. And then guess what? When you're running the ball and they got to add a safety to the box, you got DJ Moore, you got Roma Dunze, you got guys who can attack them down the field. You get them their one-on-one matchups. You make them load the box because you just improved your offensive line. Now this offense can take off.
You mentioned Darnell Wright. I found it interesting. Ben Johnson, when I was talking to him at the Combine, compared him to Penei Sewell and said he sees a lot of similarities between those two players. And I know that was music to Bears fans' ears because if you can get an all-pro career out of Darnell Wright, you're very happy with that. You keep mentioning Dan Roshar. I've heard you talk about him on the radio a few times. Why do you believe in him as the new offensive line coach?
Just people I respect in the offensive line world, really like him. Really like his style, the way he believes in fundamentals, the way he wants to get downhill, the way he wants his offensive linemen to play football. He wants them attacking guys, getting after people. Dan Roshar is really going to be hard on fundamentals. Get these guys going, get these guys moving, and teach them the correct way to block people day in and day out. I'm just as shocked as you to hear anybody compare anybody to Penei Sewell. Let's hope Darnell Wright's game picks up. Penei Sewell is he's probably a Hall of Fame football player. The guy's unbelievable. Darnell Wright does have really good film. It's a big comparison. Ben Johnson sees that. I don't want to argue with him. I wouldn't compare much people to Penei Sewell, but Darnell Wright has played good football. He is athletic. He is a big man. He did improve his pass pro. I thought at the end of the year last year, he gets movement in the run game. He got movement with, I think he had 2 or 3 different guards next to him last year. That's not easy to do, right? That's not easy. Nate Davis prior. I think Murray came in a couple times at right guard. So he played with a lot of guys there. Now you get a high-level guard next to Darnell Wright. You got a really strong side of your offensive line, and you have a good center. The Chicago Bears definitely have improved up front, but you want him to take that step that Penei Sewell has taken there for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I imagine Ben Johnson knew that Darnell Wright was going to hear that comparison and is hopefully using that as some motivation. At the left tackle spot, Ryan Poles said he would like to have a competition going into training camp, whether that's Braxton Jones and Karan Amagaji, who I think, did I hear that you're working with Karan this offseason a little bit?
I've seen him a few times.
Okay.
Just working out and going over fundamentals, and people make football a little too hard than it is. Just kind of push it back, and he's working. He was coming off an injury there out of college, and he's just kind of working on his technique and his scheme. So I've seen him once or twice. Just really simplify things and say, okay, what is your coach asking you to do? Let's work on that. Let's reverse engineer that. Let's see what he really is saying, and see if we can find a way to match that in the weight room. Right? I always think, okay, he's asking you to kick back. Well, what does that mean? What muscles do you use? What is holding you back from looking the way you're supposed to look, from absorbing force there on the pass rush? Just a lot goes into playing offensive line for these young guys, and you want to simplify it, organize their thoughts, and kind of just send them on their way and say, look, if I sent you to a high school practice, you could teach somebody how to kick step. That's basically what they're asking you to do. So you just want to simplify it for them. Ask them, okay, what are you feeling there? Why can't you get back out of your stance? Why when guys run into you, do you feel like you can't stop them? But it'll be interesting with Karan and Braxton Jones, two guys with a lot of talent. I did some work with Braxton Jones too for a couple months a few years ago. Haven't seen him in a while, but both guys who you want to see take a step, you want to see play, because eventually, man, you want to have guys on the Bears offensive line that the Bears drafted develop into these 10-year guys, develop into these culture guys, develop into these guys who set the standard. So hopefully they can get to that point in drafting guys and the Chicago Bears, and this is the Chicago Bear way, because here's a guy who's been a Chicago Bear for 10 years.
That was kind of my next question. Do you feel good about the depth they have, given that we've seen so many different combinations on the offensive line over recent years?
I don't feel great about the depth, right? I don't feel great about the guys they have backing them up. I'm sure there'll be a few more young guys coming in, hopefully through the draft, right? You see what the Eagles just did. Didn't matter to them that they had Fletcher Cox. Didn't matter to them that they had Jordan Davis. They still took Carter, right? Didn't matter to them that they had a Hall of Fame center in Jason Kelce. They still took Cam Jurgens. Jason Kelce retires. People still can't stop the quarterback sneak, and they still win the Super Bowl. So you want to see them keep filling assets into that offensive line room, like you're talking about, right? What's your depth? What's your backup situation? Rarely do you get 5 guys play 100% of the snaps. So you want to see guys keep developing, keep taking steps, and keep getting better at football so you can plug these guys in. Eventually, Joe Thuney, like we talked about, 33 years old, you want to have someone come in there and take over for him, and hopefully have them learn from Joe Thuney, right? Have them learn from a guy like that in front of them, watching them, how things are done. I remember when I first got here, I had a guy in front of me named Casey Wigman. I think he ended up playing 16 to 18 years. And he taught me a lot about being a pro, studying the film, studying your book, making every call. So just being here, getting to watch Casey Wigman work for 2 years really helped me in my career. And I think that's what the Chicago Bears want to take a look at while they develop positions that have been hard for them, right? In the trenches, having guys at, left tackle, center, finding guys has not been easy for Chicago Bears. They got to change the process of the way they do it and get that moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that's why I'm still a fan of them taking an offensive lineman with that number 10 pick, or maybe they trade back and are able to still find one in that first round. I'm looking at all these free agent deals, most of them 3-year deals. Caleb Williams, 3 years left on his rookie contract. A few weeks ago, we were talking on one of our other shows that the window for the Bears felt like it was about 5 years. But is this the front office saying the window is now within the next 3 years?
It's the front office saying they have to win, right? I mean, they know. Ryan Poles knows that people around here want to win. It's been a long time since Chicago Bears have won. They've lost way too much in the last couple of years, right? It's been even hard to do analyst work, I'm sure, as you feel. We all feel that way watching them. We want them to turn this thing around, move this thing in the right direction, win a few football games. And I think to your point, yes, the window is now, and I think they're feeling a little pressure up there, the general manager, the owners, everyone who's running that building. They want a winning season. Last time they won a playoff game, I was playing for them. I'm balding now. It's been a long time. It's trying to win a few more football games here in Chicago and Illinois, trying to figure this thing out, get them moving in the right direction, get a winning season, start stacking winning seasons, start playing winning football.
What kind of grade would you give the Bears' offensive line as it stands today after all the moves they made over those 2 trades and free agency?
Yeah, I know this is a total cop-out, but I give them an incomplete. I don't really know what this line's going to end up being. I am happy that they're pouring assets into that room. I do like that. I wouldn't say those are the assets I would have went after, but I'm happy that they went after guys, put them in that room, made them a better offensive line, put competition in there, guys who have played at a high level of football, like you mentioned, signed a number 1 center in free agency, right? Went out and gave the number 1 coach the money that he wanted and got him here. So Chicago Bears are trying to win football games. They're all trying to get guys in that room and get this trenches moving in the right direction.
And I think that's why people think they have won the offseason so far, although I think the Vikings are giving them a run for their money right now in free agency. Last question before I let you go. They have it all pro on the offensive line for the first time since you were on the team and on the offensive line. When you hear that, does that just blow your mind that somehow, some way the Bears have never been able to find someone to lock down that O-line?
It does. It is interesting, right? And it's not only that, it's like, even when I played, it was kind of drafting guys was a problem. Finding guys in the draft, right? We drafted Mark Colombo, that didn't work out. We had to sign John Tate, right? We drafted Chris Williams, that didn't work out at left tackle. You know, that the story just keeps repeating itself on and on. And I've been saying for years that these guys, when they come in, you would hope they would study the history of the Chicago Bears and then try to change it, right? But it is interesting. Joe Thuney, he can help with that offensive line room, like we talked about, change the culture, change the standard. But yes, the fact that it's been that long, and I really think, you know, 2010 was my last year, but my All-Pro year was 2006. So that's been a long time.
All right, Olin Kreutz, we appreciate your expertise on all things offensive line. Let's hope these changes protect Caleb Williams. We all know he was sacked 68 times last year, and going into his second year, it is going to be crucial for him to take a step forward. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.